Hello and welcome, viewers of Northeast Today. Welcome to Northeast Today's live session. Today, for our evening session, we have with us Worrin Muivah. He is the director and founder of NGOs Step Northeast. Step Northeast aims to bridge the educational and opportunity gap between the urban and the rural parts of Northeast and make education, quality education, accessible to even the most interior parts of Northeast. Warren is also the recipient of the Overseas Scholarship Award, and he's also the founder of this NGO. So, without making him wait any longer, let's give him a very warm welcome. Hello, Warren. Welcome to Northeast Today's live session.
Hello, Debashri. Good evening. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. Like, I remember speaking to you for a while, like about this session, and you were traveling back and forth, and we finally, so did we have the time to schedule this. So really happy and looking forward to this. And before we proceed with our questions, we have actually made a video that on you on your annual journey. Would you like to see that first?
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Worrin Muivah is the founder and director at Step Northeast. STEP is an NGO that is focused on bridging the educational and opportunity gap between the urban and rural areas of Manipur and Northeast India. Worrin has over 5 years of experience in the development and corporate sector. He is a recipient of the prestigious National Overseas Scholarship awarded by the Government of India. He is also a Young Indian Fellow, a Liberal Arts Postgraduate Fellowship delivered in collaboration with the University of Pennsylvania, King's College London, Sciences Po Paris, University of California, Berkeley, and Yale University. Prior to establishing STEP, Worrin was the head of marketing and outreach and senior program manager at the Naropa Fellowship. Worrin has also worked with Leaders Quest as a program coordinator and have been a part of 3 successful quests, impacting 3 global companies and 40 plus NGOs, social enterprises, startups across Romania, Malaysia and China. Previously, Worrin worked with Insight Consulting, Amnesty International India. Worrin's decision to quit his job and come back to Northeast to set up the NGO STEP has changed and helped several students in the Northeast and continues to do so. That's quite the resume you have. At such a young age, you have so much work experience. So, do tell us, like, where you grew up and about your time. Like, we saw you studied abroad. So, tell us about that time and from where it all started.
Yeah, sure. I was born and brought up in Imphal. So I lived all of my younger days in Imphal. I did my studies in Imphal till the 12th. And then I left home for my undergrad. And after my undergrad, I did my master's at the Young India Fellowship. And after my Young India Fellowship, I went to Netherlands on a scholarship to pursue my master's in human rights, peace, and conflict studies. So, the journey has been quite interesting. And you particularly asked about my experience of having studied in Netherlands, right? So it was a great experience. I would say that was one of the most memorable phases of my life, both in terms of the educational experience as well as the cultural experience. The educational experience being, it was a complete cultural shock for me to be, to be exposed to the European way of education after having grown up all my life with the Indian context. Just to give you an example, all throughout my master's studies there, I didn't have to. None of my exams were. How do I say? None of my exams were like the exams held in India, which means that I didn't have to mug up. I didn't have to memorize. Right? All my exams were open book exams, which means that I had to write my own answer. The faculty will give us a deadline, give us a question, and we'll have to work on our own answers, which means that we had to research on our own, go to libraries, read up articles, read up books, journals by different authors, and then create our own interpretation and analyze the answer and write it on our own, right? Which is why in fact, I remember most of the essays I've wrote in my masters. That's because I had to study on my own. And yeah, and then I really love that experience. And also, aside from the educational aspect, the cultural aspect of living in a foreign country was quite interesting, right? Just to leave everything behind and go into a foreign country and live there for 1.5 years doing my masters. It was such a great experience in terms of just meeting new people, meeting new cultures, and then the very fact that I had the Schengen visa really helped me to travel to all the neighboring countries as well. So all of those experiences were yeah, quite priceless.
Wow. So, like, like you mentioned, there where the education system is completely different in India and in abroad. So, what were the challenges like that you initially faced, and then coming back to India, you worked with so many organizations, the prestigious organization. When and how did you decide to set up STEP?
Okay, so it's a long story why it's decided to
Yeah, we have
start
to
up step,
understand.
right?
Hmm.
So I'll just go back to the early part again.
Right.
Like I said, I grew up in a very normal lower middle class family. Right? My parents were not that educated to be able to guide us. So as we grew up, the only advice that they could give us was study hard. You have to become somebody in life. Study hard. You have to become somebody in life, without really showing us how to become that somebody. Right? So, we grew up in a very low middle class family, just with enough resources to live our everyday life. So I never ever in my wildest dreams thought that I would be able to go abroad and do my masters, because like I said, as I grew up, I had no mentor, I had nobody to guide me. So my life was a complete trial and error method. And I had the opportunity to study at the Young India Fellowship right after my graduation. And that opportunity to study at the fellowship on a full scholarship was one of the best opportunities I received in my life, right? That opened my eyes to so many things. So towards the
Yeah.
end of the program, all of my peers, all of my classmates got offers from Harvard, from Oxford, from Stanford, from INSEAD, all of these places. And then I looked at myself and I realized that here I was with no offers, with no applications, nothing of that sort. And then I realized, what I mean, if they can, I can as well, So I had that moment of realization, and I started applying for masters, and I got that scholarship, I got that admission, and I went abroad. And that opportunity to study at the Young India Fellowship gave me the opportunity to go abroad. And then that opportunity to go abroad gave me the opportunity to work in prestigious organizations and companies when I came back. So last year, during the lockdown, I had a moment of epiphany where I realized that I have become the person that I am, not because of anything else. It's not because of money, not because of wealth, not because of anything, but only because of the opportunities I received. And that realization really struck me. And I realized that there are so many kids back home these days who are growing up, like really talented kids. When I looked at my own self, I had a lot of classmates who were smarter than me, who were more brilliant than me, right? But they are not doing things that they are supposed to do based on the potential because they didn't get the opportunities. But I did, and I became somebody in life. So that realization, made me realize that these kids who are growing up right now do not have proper opportunities, do not have proper mentorship and guidance. And if they're not led in the right direction, they'll be making a lot of wrong mistakes, and that would spoil their life, right? And then if our younger generations are not molded properly, and if they are not, if they make the wrong decisions and are not molded properly, we as a society will be the ones suffering. So that realization made me resign from my job and come back home and start STEP in order to sort of bridge this opportunity gap, in order to bridge this divide in the educational system. So, which is why I started STEP last year when I came back during the lockdown.
Okay, and that's a really brave decision. Like most people would, most Indians, like we know, are scared even to switch from a regular full-time job to a part-time job. And what you did was like really brave and laudable. That's very brave and nice decision. So, wasn't it scary for you? Like because it would be for most people to quit from a secure, well-paying job to starting an NGO.
No, no, it definitely was scary. It definitely was scary because, like I said, for the last 5, 6 years, I've led a very comfortable life, right? I know where my next paycheck is going to come from, when it is coming. So I always have that security. So life was quite nice. I worked in good organizations, companies at a good salary, and I always had the luxury and the security of my next paycheck coming from, where my next paycheck was coming from. But when I decided to, when I was thinking about it, I really thought about it. Okay, if I do this, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna have a, stable income. I'm not gonna have stable salary. So where do I get my income from? So that thought really sort of uh, terrified me, right? And until the lockdown, I had always intended to come back home at some point of time and work for the community and for the society. But in my mind, I was thinking that I'll do this in my 40s or 50s, earn enough money, save up enough, create enough network, make enough contacts, and come back home and do it. But then
Right.
last year during the lockdown, like everybody else, we all had a lot of time to introspect, to ponder on ourselves. And then I realized, what's the point of doing it later when I'm old? Like I have the money, but I might not have the energy, the enthusiasm to do the things that I want to do right now. So I might as well do it while I'm still young and have the chance to fail while I can, right? So with that decision,
Right.
I came back, and it was terrifying, but I decided to take that dive. So I came back. And more than that, the other terrifying thought that sort of haunted me all this while was also, okay, Warren, what about this? You quit your job, you quit your comfortable job, come back home, you start this NGO. What if it fails? Right? So that thought of failure also sort of haunted me from making this decision for the longest time. But then somehow or the other, I just decided that if not now, then when? So I just took that dive, and it's been a year since I quit my job and started Step, and God has been gracious. God has been good. I'm still surviving, so I think that's a good sign.
Wow, that was actually a very honest answer. Like I have asked a lot of people, like our friends, family, about when I've seen people who leave their full-time job, start an NGO, and about if it's a scary process, and most would be like, no, it's not. Yeah, it's a bit at the initial stage, but your answer was really honest, and yes, it's like understandable. It might be very terrifying, but tell us. But the response has been so good. Step has been doing so well. So how was the response initially from the teachers you reached out to, and students, and people of the Northeast, whoever Step reached out to?
Like I said, I feel very blessed, and I'm very thankful for the support I've received so far. The response has been great. It has been great, and I'm blown away by the response I've been receiving from every nook and corner. The very fact that we're having this conversation right now with Northeast today is a testament to the fact that the work that Step is doing is being heard and known by people around. So thank you for this opportunity. The response has been good in the sense that people have been, schools, villages have reached out to Step to come and conduct workshops, to come and conduct sessions for the students, for the teachers. And these are people that I've never known in my life, right? So I conduct one session, the word of mouth spreads that, oh, this session has been really helpful. Why don't you do it? So the word spreads. And I have traveled to quite a lot of schools and villages in the last 1 year and have conducted all of these sessions. Just a month back, 4 schools from Arunachal invited me to come and conduct some workshops for the schools and for the teachers. And
Wow,
they heard
that's
about STEP. Yeah, they heard about STEP from one of my interviews in YouTube by one of the media houses in Ukhrul in Manipur. They saw my interview, and they invited me to come and conduct these sessions for them. So in that sense, I feel very blessed and very lucky to have enjoyed such success. I mean, I'm not saying I am successful, but so far I have been doing well and I'm surviving. And it's all because of the love that the people have shown me. So I'm very grateful for that.
And what do you think about, and what are your views, about the current, since STEP really revolves around the education system and improving the education system of Northeast of Manipur. So, what are your views on the current education system of the Northeast?
I feel that generally speaking, the education system in the Northeast is still very old fashioned. The world has moved on to the 21st century, but we're still stuck in the 20th century in terms of the way we look at education. We're still very focused on grades. We're still very focused on getting good marks, getting good ranks. You know, we're still very focused on that. And the education system has been built and structured in such a way that it encourages and incentivizes students who get good marks and good grades, right? But now we've moved beyond academic successes to the world has moved on from academic performance to an overall performance in terms of your extracurricular activities, in terms of your skills, in terms of your talents, in terms of everything else. But we're still stuck only with the academic, like the grade part of it. So I think this is something that is holding our students, holding our youth back from being able to compete with other people, right? Because we are only focused on getting good grades, but that we are losing out on a lot of other aspects of our overall growth. So I think we as a society need to move beyond this focus on grades.
Okay. And beyond that, like, I get it, like you just mentioned, the grade system that we focus too much on, especially here in Northeast, that should be changed. And is there anything else about the current education system of the Northeast that you'd like to see change?
I would like to see emphasis being given to skill development as well. For example, let's say one thing I realized from my experience was that if you want to apply for scholarships, if you want to apply for admissions abroad, they don't only focus on your academic qualifications and achievements. They also look at your extracurricular side. And for us, our education system has only encouraged us to study, mug up, get good marks, that we don't have anything else to show aside from our academic side, right? So I would encourage schools to have more extracurricular activities in terms of sports, in terms of skill development, in terms of, cultural events, just a holistic development of the students, whether it be through academics, through physical, through mental, through spiritual side of it, through every aspect of it. So I would like this incorporation in our classes, in our education system in the coming days. The government has, introduced the NEP, the new education policy, and I see that they are focusing a lot on skills in this new policy, and hopefully we can see a change in our region as well with this new policy.
Okay, and Warren, we can see a picture on the screen right now of you. It's you in a classroom. So could you tell us about this picture, give us the background story of this picture a bit?
Yeah, sure. This was from the recent trip to Arunachal. So like I said, 4 schools invited me to come and conduct career counseling sessions for the schools. Yeah, and communication skills training for the teachers. So my brother and I, we drove from Imphal all the way to Itanagar and drove back.
Okay.
So this is in one of the school. I think it was Little Angel School in Itanagar, where we were conducting communication skills training for the teachers and career counseling sessions for the students. So these are just snippets from that workshop.
And how was your experience there?
It was great. It was great. It was quite a humbling experience. A lot of those students, they were so naive and so innocent that, for example, I started, most of them were very young. So most of my target audience are either higher secondary students or college students. And here in this group of students, the highest class was class 8. So I had to sort of modify my approach to the way I conduct these sessions. So I had a very interactive session with them. For example, I asked them, okay, how many of you want to be a doctor? How many of you want to be an engineer? And then they'll raise their hand. Then I asked, okay, but do you know how to be a doctor? they know how to become a doctor, and they were clueless. They want to be a doctor, they want to be engineers, but they didn't know how to become a doctor. They didn't know that they had to write NEET exam or JEE exam, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
just being a student and wanting to be a doctor but not knowing how to become a doctor when you've reached class 8 is also quite quite interesting. So this whole session was spent on teaching them and explaining them how to become a doctor, how to become an engineer. Some of them said, I want to be a boxer, I want to be a footballer, professional footballer, very, very cute. So I had to go on explaining all of these experiences to them and just show them the way so that they don't forget it. I just told them, for example, if you want to be a doctor, you have to have an interest in biology. You can't say, I want to be a doctor and hate biology, right?
Yeah.
So things like that. It was quite a nice experience. I had a lot of fun.
Right. And also, like speaking about STEP that focuses on Northeast and Manipur. Like one major reason, like interstate conflicts is one of the main reasons of bunds or school closures that we know in Northeast. So how do you think we as a society, that, school closure and bunds we have seen growing up here, that really hampers education, especially during the exam period or before the exam period. So, do you think we as a society can tackle this issue?
Definitely we can. Definitely we can. And I have a take on this. I mean, everybody has their own ideas and opinions on how to tackle this. I have a theory to tackle this, right? And it takes me back to what I was saying. For example, in our education system, we focus so much on grades that we don't inculcate critical thinking in our students. We don't inculcate empathy. We don't inculcate any of these 21st century skills. We only focus on marks, grades. And then the students go on to become leaders in the societies, in their CSOs, political leaders, or just leaders in their own capacity. And since they have
Right.
not been taught the skills of critical thinking, analytical thinking, they're not able to understand. So, for example, we bring a change in our education system and we start inculcating these skills like critical thinking, analytical thinking, thinking out of the box, empathy in the students as a part of the curriculum. When they grow up and become leaders, they'll be able to understand the impact that these buns have, for example, these strikes have. And maybe, who knows, they can come up with more innovative ways of protest. There are so many ways to protest, but so far, we as a society in our region only just focuses on buns and strikes, right? And that has a huge economic and educational impact on our society. But if you have all of the skills from your educational level, maybe you'll be able to think out of the box and say, no, guys, we shouldn't protest in such a way that we close down schools, we close down this. Let's come up with more innovative ways of protest, for example. And I think if they have been inculcated in critical thinking from a young age, right, they'll be able, when they become adults and become leaders, they'll be able to think more strategically and more out of the box. So I think in order to tackle this, we need to bring a paradigm shift in the way we teach or look at education. And then the product of this education system will create more empathetic and more, leaders who are more critical thinkers. And we as a society might see a change in the way we tackle problems, in the ways we protest, or in the ways we look at solutions. So that's my personal take on how education can help us move away from this culture of buns and strikes.
That was actually really nicely put, and we actually see where education there is a less educated population. We see more strikes and conflicts. So quality education, like you very nicely put in your answer, is the solution. But also, about, like, since we are on the topic of students from the Northeast and about their well-being, so we see a lot of students here, they feel compelled to leave this region. Like, suppose if a student is from Assam or from Manipur, they feel compelled, after a specific period, that they have to go outside for higher studies, for better education. So do you think that will change as well?
Yes, yes, definitely. It will change. It will change. Of late, we've seen a lot of quality institutes being established in different parts of the Northeast.
Okay.
For example, I don't personally know Royal Global University, but it's making waves, right? I see billboards everywhere I go. Just a lot of private as well as government institutes are coming up. And for example, compared to my high school days, which is like 10, 15 years back, compared to those days, the number of burns and strikes have also gone down. We've seen
Yeah.
a spurt in entrepreneurs from our region. We see a lot of people coming back home, starting their own entrepreneurial ventures, right? Coming up with their own businesses. And I think we I can't give you a perfect solution or recipe right now, but I'm a strong believer that in the coming days, in the coming years, our youngsters need not leave our region for better education. They will, a lot of people who have gotten the exposure have come back and doing something to change it. For example, after all my exposure, I've come back to start STEP and STEP Fellowship, where we're trying to reimagine education and change the way that education is being meted out in our state, right? So
Yeah.
as more youngsters come back with this kind of new innovative ideas, I've heard of this new startup in Nagaland called Naga Ed. It's a Naga Ed. It's an online educational platform that has tied up with a lot of schools to provide
Yeah.
quality education online, right?
Oh.
So once we have all of this, more of these startups, more of these individuals, entrepreneurs coming back home, and then doing all of these things, maybe our upcoming generation will realize that they don't really need to go out. And also, the pandemic has normalized online education, so they can sit in the comfort of their own houses and also learn the same kind of course that they would be learning outside as well. So my belief is that it will definitely come down. People will continue staying back here and still get good education.
Okay. And why don't you tell us more about the Step Fellowship that you were referring to earlier?
Yeah. So when I started STEP, I started off with three verticals in mind, which was the teacher training program, which was the career counseling sessions, career counseling
Yeah.
workshops, and the exposure programs, right? So I started off with these, and then I was traveling from village to village, school to school, conducting these workshops. And then the second lockdown started. And when the second lockdown started, I couldn't do any of this anymore. I couldn't travel, I couldn't leave my house. So I was thinking, okay, what do I do? How do I create more impact during this pandemic, during this lockdown? And I had a chat with my mentor who came up with this idea of the STEP Fellowship. And we had a conversation, and I realized that it has so much potential that we started this STEP Fellowship. So a STEP Fellowship is a fully online 6 months fellowship, and it is a merit and means employability program for underserved indigenous women. So we select girls from the most marginalized sections of the society, and we train them for 6 months in 21st century skills, which include, communication skills, professional presence, computer skills like Excel and PowerPoint, and then budgeting skills, basic mathematics, basic English grammar, and then critical thinking and financial education, and a lot of other guest sessions as well, right? So the idea
Yeah.
is that we train them for the 6 months, so that by the end of the 6 months they'll be able to get jobs, because right now in the
Okay.
Northeast we have a huge problem of unemployment. But
We do.
the problem here is not unemployment. The problem here is unemployability, right? We have a lot of youths with degrees, with bachelor's, master's, PhD degrees, but are unable to get a job because they just have degrees but have no skills. And in the 21st century, right now, if you don't have skills, it's difficult to survive. So we're trying to sort of bridge this gap by skilling these girls so that they can start earning money, become financially independent, and start supporting their families. Because we live in a very patriarchal society in the Northeast, right? Where we often consider the sons, the man, to be the sole bread earner of the family, while the women are always dependent on them. So we wanted to sort of break this stereotype as well. So we train these girls, make them employable, train them with skills, so they start getting jobs and they start earning and they start helping their family. So in that sense, we're also breaking that stereotype that only men are the bread earners of the family. So that is what this fellowship is about. And right now in our first batch, we have 10 girls. We have 10 girls who are a
That's
part
so.
of the fellowship. and they will graduate in February. And then after that, we will start with the second batch of the STEP Fellowship as well. So that's what
That
fellowship is about.
That's really wonderful. That's some really nice work that you're doing, helping out, women who especially need help. Like you said, Northeast, the entire Northeast region is very patriarchal. It's a patriarchal society, and women need help, more education, more jobs. So, what you're doing is really, really, really nice and really wonderful.
Thank you.
Also, yeah. Also, more about what more talking about STEP. STEP has almost, if I'm not wrong, completed a year in November this year, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So in this 1 year span, tell us about a major success story or about somebody you have helped that was a major breakthrough or something.
Okay. That's a very tricky question because in the education sector, 1 year is a very short time to, study the impact, right? It usually takes 3 to 5 years to really understand the impact that it has created in the
Exactly.
education sector. So, I mean, we don't have really concrete success stories, but success stories in the sense that, for example, just more people subscribing to the work that we do at STEP. Like I said, I have conducted quite a lot of workshops, a lot of sessions online as well as physical in different schools and villages. And all of this happened not because I approached them. They were the ones who approached me to conduct these
Okay.
sessions for them, right? Because they heard from somebody else who had attended one of the session and realized it was helpful. So, maybe the teacher or the principal or the student spread the word, and then there's, oh, we want it for our students as well. Oh, we want it for our teachers as well. And then the word of mouth spread. And then we've had a lot of such success stories. So that is one of the success. And also during the recent pandemic, when we had that break, we pivoted from education to public health in the sense that we tied up with a couple of other NGOs from Manipur and Delhi, and we successfully provided 100 BiPAP machines to the state of Manipur, right? We distributed
Okay.
all these BiPAP machines to all the hill districts of Manipur because they
Okay.
had no access to such. So that was also another success story. And then the third would be the launch of this STEP Fellowship, where we are currently skilling and training these 10 girls. The feedback has been, luckily, by God's grace, the feedback has been really good. And they are learning a lot of things. And we can see that they are evolving into more confident girls. When we started the program, they were really shy girls, didn't even open their mouth, couldn't even ask questions. But here at the fellowship, we keep saying, ask questions, right? And then these girls, they've most of them have not even left their hometown. So their education system is such that they don't ask questions or they're not encouraged to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
So our faculty, they encourage them to ask questions. So it was a complete culture shock for them, for the teachers encouraging them to ask questions. And then there are no silly questions, no silly answers, right? Everything is important. So now the girls have become much more confident. They can't stop asking questions, right? They're very smart. Like I said, we focus a lot on critical thinking. So the way they look at things, their perspectives have started to change. They're more broad-minded and open-minded. So these are some of the major success stories that we have achieved in the last 1 year.
Okay, and as I was reading about STEP in your official website, so I found out that there were, you talk about STEP's vision is to reach the most remote parts of Northeast. So how do you achieve that? Like, how do you reach the most students from the most remote parts of Northeast?
So as of now, that involves me traveling physically to these villages.
Okay, and that might
So
be very hectic.
yeah. So as of now, it's me traveling in my car or in my vehicle to all of these villages, to all of these schools, and talking to them, conducting these sessions for them. The reason being, for example, if a child is born in a village, by default, he is supposed to live in that village, study in that village until he reaches an age where he has to leave for higher studies, right? So
Exactly, yeah.
as long as he is in that village, because of the system of the environment in the village, his life revolves around that village and that school. He wakes up, goes to school, comes back home, go to the farm, help the family, come back home, sleep, and repeat. So they have, like I said, they have no exposure. They can't think beyond. They have no exposure, and it's not their fault. It's because of the environment and the system. They go to school, they memorize their subjects, they go back home, work in the field, sleep, and repeat, right? So these students, finally, when they leave the village and go to the city or town for further studies, because they have no choice but to go, now they become classmates with students who have lived or studied in cities all their life. And there's a huge gap in the way they are trained, in the way they've been brought up, right? So many a times it leads to students getting demotivated, right? They have this huge inferiority complex, and they do not get motivated. They don't feel motivated to study. They often drop out, go back to the village and become farmers or do something else, right? So in order to sort of avoid that, me and my team, we travel from village to village, schools to schools, and we conduct these career counseling sessions for them and exposure programs for them, where we talk to these kids, we prepare them for what's waiting outside, and also we want to broaden their mindset so they know that what's waiting for them out there, right? So right now we're doing it through physically traveling to villages, having these sessions for them, interacting with them, conducting workshops for them. And we are also working on a project where we want to create a repository of all of this information. So, for example, right now, if a kid in the rural area says, "I want to be an engineer," they think that engineer means in a singular form. That's what engineer means, engineer. But we know that engineer is divided into so many other types of engineers again, right? Chemical engineering, computer engineering, software engineering, everything. So but they don't know that. They say, "I just want to be an engineer," right? So, that's just a one classic example. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a repository of all of these things. Let's say, okay, engineer, you want to be an engineer? Okay. If you want to be a chemical engineer, you have to be good in these subjects, right? If you want to be a computer engineer, you have to be good in these subjects. Yeah, you need to get this many marks. These are the colleges that you need to study, right? After this, passing from this college, you can get this kind of jobs. So we're trying to create a repository of different career possibilities that they can look out for once they graduate, once they leave the village. And then it can be in an offline form. So the students, even though they don't have internet, even though they don't have gadgets, they can always refer to the offline format of this repository. The teachers can also help the students, and they can prepare them while they're still in the village before they step out of the village. So these are some of the things that we are working on at the moment, and this is how we're reaching out to rural areas at the moment.
Okay, and could you brief us more about the counseling sessions that you hold with the students?
Okay, so like I said before, again, now the world has moved on. We live in a very different world than where our parents lived. Right? Back in the days, it was just doctor, engineers, or IAS officers, and
Right.
our kids have been pressured into becoming a doctor or an engineer or an IAS officer, that they are just only told to study, study, study. For those who want to study, for those who are interested in academics, perfect, great for them, because we need more officers, we need more doctors, we need more engineers in our tribal societies, right? But again, not everyone can be engineers, not everyone can be doctors. There's different individuals who are gifted in different ways. So what we do in these counseling sessions are that we try to assess the students' interests, the students' talents, and then direct them to possible career opportunities for them in their area of interest. So for example, let's say we have a kid who is uninterested in studies at all, but he is a sharp shooter. He has a catapult, goes to the jungle and just shoots, and he is a sharp shooter. Maybe, for example, we can say that we can arrange, for example, arrange him to come and have audition with the police force, and they can see how sharp he is in his shooting. And if he is a really sharp shooter, maybe the police can take him and he can represent the police in shooting competitions. And then eventually maybe he can start competing at the national level, he can start competing at the international level. And this is an example, okay? So that's what we do in our career counseling sessions. We not only focus on the conventional jobs, careers, but we more focus more on skills and talents that the students have, and then we try to sort of assess their talents and skills and try to create opportunities for them where they can pursue this interests and make a career out of them. So this is what we focus in our career counseling sessions as well, aside from the
Okay.
conventional doctors, engineers, and competitive exams.
Okay, Warren, also Warren, like this is a really interesting and nice picture we can see on the screen right now. Like, could you tell us about this a bit?
Sure. This was
Yeah.
last year in my mom's village called Sanakite
Okay.
village in Manipur. And
Hmm.
this is Christmas. It's a tradition in Christmas back in the village where
Hmm.
after everything is done in the evening, all the youths they come together and they sing
Yeah.
Christmas carols and walk
Hmm.
around in circles
Wow,
for
that's
maybe
that's really
45 minutes to 1 hour. Yeah, it's quite fun. That's just one
hmm.
thing that we youths look forward to every Christmas. So we just walk around. There's a choir who sings with a drum on the side, and all these youths they just clap their hands, they sing along, and they walk around in the circle for 45 minutes to 1 hour. And yeah, that's what we do actually here. So that's what we're doing
Yeah,
here right now.
yeah, that's this is also a really nice picture, and I came across this in your profile, and I really wanted to know about it. Seems like a really nice festival. Also, like coming back to step right now from all this, like
Yeah.
uh, since you started during the pandemic, like most, NGOs or businesses were closing down during, 2020, as we know, the pandemic affected all sectors, and also the education system, especially in rural parts of Northeast. So how will STEP handle this problem, of COVID? Because now we have this another variant of COVID coming up. So this will keep on happening time and again. So how do you plan to handle this?
The Boshe, I lost you there. I couldn't hear you at all.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was saying, am I audible right now? Uh, Warren, can
Can
you
you hear
hear
me?
me? Yeah, I can hear you. Am I audible? Yes. Am I audible? Uh, I think there is a network issue. Like, can you hear me all right?
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a complete silence.
Yeah. In between, I think there is a bit of a network issue in here that Warren is facing. So we'll get back more into the issue. Like Warren, um, has been speaking about how he and his NGO Step Northeast has been going on and reaching to remote parts of Northeast to students and training teachers so that the students of Northeast get quality
Get quality
education, the help
education, the
that
help that
they need,
they
and
need, and
will I think there is a bit of a network issue, viewers. I'll try to uh, connect. I think Maureen is trying to connect here right now, but he's facing a
Okay.
bit of an issue. Am I audible to you right now?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yes.
can.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you?
I think there was a network issue. Yes, I can hear
Yeah,
you
yeah,
now.
there
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So as I was
So
saying,
can you
you
ask
know
the
what?
question again? Huh.
Yeah, yeah, sure. As I was saying, during the pandemic, the pandemic has affected all sectors, like education as well. So how does STEP plan to tackle this?
So am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yes, you are. Yes, you are. I can hear you. You please go on.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do we plan to tackle this thing in the pandemic? It's
Hmm,
it's it's something that we're still figuring out. It's something that we're still figuring out. I think
hmm,
the most recent solution that we've come up with is the introduction of the STEP Fellowship. Right.
hmm,
So the STEP Fellowship is a completely 100% online course. So the fellows are in the comfort of their own houses, in their own village, or in their own districts. So
hmm,
out of our 10 fellows, they're all scattered in different parts of Manipur. Yet
hmm,
they still have daily classes. most of our faculty are my friends and acquaintances who live in either Delhi or Bangalore or Bombay, right? So
Yeah.
uh, yet they are still able to have daily classes. So this is one thing that we have come up with to tackle the pandemic and the lockdown. So we don't really, our
Okay.
fellows don't really need to come together physically in a physical space. They can be in the comfort of their own house, in the comfort of their own rooms, and attend these classes. So that's one thing that we're focusing on. But in terms of my workshops, I have sort of created a hybrid model where I conduct online communications workshop for interested individuals every week. And over the last few days, as the pandemic has gotten better, I have started, yeah, these are my online workshop participants with a lot of fun in the last lockdown, where we conducted almost 30 plus workshops online. So it was a good thing. And but now I'm looking forward to having physical workshops now.
Okay. And since you've been doing so well, STEP has almost completed a year in Northeast and Manipur. So, which Northeastern states it's most actively taken interest in STEP's programs?
I would say, obviously, it's Manipur. That's because I'm based in Manipur, right? And because of that, I've had most of my work done in Manipur. And definitely, I
Okay.
mean, my work is not limited to Manipur per se. It's for the entire northeastern. But I just started off. We're just a 1 year old organization, and we're
Yeah.
still figuring out funding. We're still figuring out all of this stuff. So we don't have the bandwidth and the resource to go beyond Manipur at the moment. But I have conducted a virtual online program for the students in Mon district in Nagaland. I have been invited by Arunachal Pradesh to come and conduct certain sessions in Arunachal Pradesh. So we have done all of that, but most of our operation is focused in Manipur as of now. So hopefully it will change in the next coming years, few years. I don't know, depending on the availability of funding and just more interested individuals and organizations from other states as well.
Okay. And what are your future plans regarding STEP?
My future plan, well, I have a lot. I have a lot, but the immediate plan is to increase the intake of the fellows in the STEP fellowship.
Okay.
Obviously that's a wish, that's a plan. It all depends on funding again. It all depends on how much money I can raise for the second batch. And based on that, I would like to take in more fellows. For example, in the first batch, we have 10 fellows. In the next batch, I would like to take in at least 15 to 20 fellows. So expansion of the STEP fellowship are the immediate expansion is the immediate goal at the moment. And in terms of my workshops, I would like to cover more districts in Manipur and also expand to other states, neighboring states of Manipur as well. And
Okay.
maybe if everything goes well, I would like to have a physical institute for STEP as well, where we can focus on skill development and skill training for our youths. So those are some of the plans that I
Okay.
have.
Okay, so we have talked a lot about STEP's approach, towards the students, towards the teachers. So how will you say your approach is different towards education from others?
So we're trying to, based on my experience of being a young India fellow, based on my experience of having studied abroad, because of all of the exposure, I'm trying to bring a different side of education in the STEP fellowship, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
here we're focusing more on critical thinking. We're focusing more on developing professional skills. So for example, in order to improve the critical thinking ability of my fellows, when we conduct the literature classes, for example, let's say on our first day of literature class, we studied this poem called "Oh Daughter, Where Is Your Home" by a Manipuri poet. I forgot the name of the poet. Pardon me for that. So in a conventional education system, what would have normally gone down is that the fellows would have studied the poems, go to school, write it down exactly as it is, and get full marks, right? And then the
Yeah.
students, the teachers would say, "Oh, great, good, great student, because you wrote exactly the same thing." But then at step fellowship, we completely we do a different thing. So for example, we read the poem together, and we let our fellows interpret the poem based on the experience, like how is it to be growing up as a girl in a family, how is it like growing up as a girl among brothers, right? So they'll share the experiences where they say, "Oh, my parents gave more emphasis to my brothers than me." Some said, "Oh, uh, I don't want to get married after reading this poem because I really don't have a home, because even at home my parents give more emphasis to my brothers and not me, and when I get married I'll be going to my husband's house, and there I'll also be an outsider because it's not my family." So all of this discussion started ensuing in the class, right? So this is what we're trying to sort
Yeah.
of bring about in the way we conduct our classes: critical thinking, the ability to look at things from different perspectives and come up with their own interpretations,
Hmm.
rather than just do. And like I said, we focus on communication skills, practical skills like Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, practical skills like financial education, how to invest, what are the different types of investment, what are different
Hmm.
types of saving. So I have a banker friend who comes and conduct these classes for them. So these are the kind of things that we are teaching at the STEP Fellowship, rather than them just mugging up answers and just writing them and memorizing them.
Okay. And what are your views on holistic education? Like we know holistic education is really important. So, what would be your views on that?
I think by now you would have known my answer, right?
Yeah.
Based on all our conversation from the beginning, I'm a huge propagator of holistic education, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
like I said before, right now in Northeast we only focus on grades, but we I want a holistic approach to education where we focus on grades. We also focus on the physical aspect. We focus on extracurricular activities. We focus on the mental health of our students. We don't understand how much stress our students go through because of all of this pressure, right? To be able to be in the top 10, to get position, to be in the first division, and they go through a lot of mental stress. So just focusing on the mental health, focusing on the talent and skills. If we focus on all of these aspects and focus on the holistic development of our students, there will be a huge paradigm shift in the way our education system grows up. There will be a huge paradigm shift in the next generation. We will have more innovators. Right now we only have students who follow orders, who work under people and follow orders. They are good in what they do, but they don't have innovative thinking. They don't have critical thinking, so they can never be leaders. They can never be innovators. Maybe once we bring a paradigm shift in the way we look at education and bring this holistic development, we're going to start having more entrepreneurs. We're going to start having more leaders, more you know critical thinkers, scholars, and all of that. So I am definitely a propagator of holistic education, and I hope
Okay.
that we will get to see it soon in the coming days.
Yeah, and Warren, I've already taken a lot of your time. I won't keep you any longer. But before we sign
That's
off,
completely
like
fine. Yeah.
a lot of people, would be looking forward to any message from you. So, what would be your message to all students, teachers, or everyone from the Northeast watching you live?
Yeah. First of all, to the people who are viewing right now, thank you so much for your support, for having watched this interview. It means a lot. And again, it's a testament of your support and your love for STEP. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to Northeast today as well. The message that I would like to give is, you know, based on my lived experience, I grew up in a lower middle class family. I grew up from a very humble background, right? But then with the opportunities I received, I was able to become somebody in life, and now I have decided to give back to the community because of the blessings and the opportunities I received. And to whoever is viewing right now, to all the viewers, I want you to realize that nothing is impossible. Like, if a person like me, a nobody, can be doing things like this, anybody can do it. It's just that we need the guidance, we need the mentorship to make all these right decisions. So step is always there for you to reach out to us for any kind of queries, for any kind of questions. We'll be more than happy to answer your queries and your questions. So please feel free to reach out to us, and know that anything is possible in this world. Anything. We should not let our circumstances, we should not let our financial circumstances, social circumstances hold us back from achieving our potential. And also, I just want you to realize that it's not all now. The 21st century is not only about academics. If you're not good in studies and you're feeling sad right now, it's not the end of the world. Everybody is talented and gifted in their own ways. So there's, as long as you are dedicated and you persevere and work hard, anything is possible. So never forget that.
Okay, that was such a wonderful and very inspiring message. So I really hope all our viewers, get the takeaway and get this meaningful work and learn from what you're doing. You have been a role model to all this, so many people here in the Northeast, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And I really, really hope that STEP does everything that it's doing. It's doing great work and it reaches out to more people. All the very best for that. And thank you very much for attending Northeast Today's live session. It's been a pleasure, and have a great evening. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Worrin Muivah is the founder and director at STEP North-East. STEP is an NGO that is focused on bridging the educational and opportunity gap between the urban and rural areas of Manipur and North-East India. Worrin has over 5 years of experience in the development and corporate sector. He is a recipient of the prestigious National Overseas Scholarship awarded by the Government of India. He is also a Young Indian Fellow, a liberal arts postgraduate fellowship delivered in collaboration with the University of Pennsylvania, King's College London, Sciences Po Paris, University of California, Berkeley, and Yale University. Prior to establishing STEP, Worrin was the head of marketing and outreach and senior program manager at the Naropa Fellowship. Worrin has also worked with Leaders Quest as a program coordinator and have been a part of 3 successful quests, impacting 3 global companies in 40 plus NGOs, social enterprises, startups across Romania, Malaysia, and China. Previously, Worrin worked with Insight Consulting, Amnesty International India. Worrin's decision to quit his job and come back to Northeast to set up the NGO STEP has changed and helped several students in the Northeast and continues to do so.